Welcome back to NBL Now, thanks to Code Sports. We've got plenty to discuss from round 5 action, including Bryce Cotton's half-century and plenty of import chat. I'm Kelsey Browne here today to do it with NBL champion and one of my favourite profiles on X, Mark Worthington. Wortho, great to have you company.
Thanks, Kels. Good to be here. And we've got so much to talk about because there was a huge weekend of basketball that we've just seen and another huge week that we've got coming up.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the one coming up. But let's have a chat about a few things that have happened in the past few weeks. None bigger than this import discussion at the moment. It's this early in the season. We've seen so many import changes, so many cuts. It started with Blyenberg at Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, didn't even get a game under his belt. And now the latest is Mason Jones. What's going on, in your opinion?
I don't think the stakes have ever been higher with so many teams um, announcing that they're going all in this season. Obviously Adelaide made a huge splash by bringing Bryce over. Melbourne United are always going to be there. The Cairns Taipans said we're spending money because we want to win a championship. Um, so that's just three. There are so many other teams that have tipped so much money into this in the hopes of winning a championship this season. So the import changes itself are going to happen because they want to get it right. And the earlier you can get it right and settle your roster, and I spoke about this last week here on NBL Now, you need to get your roster right before Christmas and you need to have a winning percentage because that will make a huge difference to the back end of the season.
There was discussion during commentary this weekend around, you know, is there pressure from the media? Is there pressure on the coaches? Where do you think all of this pressure is coming from? And do you think that you're agreeing with a lot of the cutting that has been happening?
I agree with everything that's happened so far as the changes that have happened. Um, it's a little bit to do with the growth of the NBL and the expectations of the product and the standard that we've got. The media have played a role in it, but that's not a bad thing either. I think in a world where uh, other sports that we see are highly criticized week in and week out, the NBL has sort of gone through as always sort of the nice guys, so to speak, with not too much bad publicity. Now, this is not necessarily bad publicity. This is now an expectation of where teams want to get to. And for me, I think everything that has happened to date has made a lot of sense. And I'm sure we're about to get into the Mason Jones conversation and how I see it. But to me, every team has made the right decision thus far in the changes that they've made. And I'm sure this is not the end of it. There'll be a few more to go before it's all said and done.
I think your comment on the fact that there's so much more scrutiny and there's a lot more expectation, I think that is a really exciting time. People can look at it as a negative, but it means that the sport is growing and when you're getting a lot of more eyes, a lot more people reporting on your sport, that's just going to become part of it. And you have to welcome that, I think, if you're a part of the league at the moment. You did say Mason Jones. I have to ask you about it. We heard John really come out with his comments on the fit of Mason Jones. It would be interesting to hear whether there was, some locker room issues there. But your thoughts on Mason Jones?
First and foremost, very talented basketball player. I got mail before the start of the season when he signed. Obviously, his credentials of being the G League MVP are a huge accomplishment, but also I got told he won't last the season because of the attitude and the person that he is. That's just male. So let's separate the two things. There's what actually happens in a locker room, and for the media and the fan base, we'll never know truly what happens within an inner sanctum of a club. We can only speculate of what happens. History has told us if you're a MVP of a G League and that team no longer really wants you, there must be more to the story there. I'm not saying that Mason Jones did anything in Perth, but history would say that there might be something there that we'll find out later on down the track. To me, take that to the side for a second. the fit of Mason Jones within this Perth Wildcats team didn't really make sense as an exciting. And this is the dilemma a lot of list managers have when it comes to making a team. Is it the best talent versus what your roster already has? And to me, he didn't quite fit the mold, nor did he make himself into an NBL player, which for most teams, you've got to be able to move the ball. You've got to be able to knock down shots. You've got to be able to play make. He seemed reluctant as a shooter in the first couple of games, and he seemed reluctant um, as a teammate, to say the least, with some of his body language and all that. And you've really got to come in and encompass everything that is the NBL and the Australian culture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. There's plenty playing out in that import space, and I think no doubt there'll be more coming in the rest of the NBL 26 season. Let's talk about Bryce Cotton. This man is unbelievable. Every single time I commentate a game, and I know that we've got Adelaide 36ers, I get so excited to watch Bryce Cotton just because I feel like he levels up every single game, and we're watching that throughout this season. 53 points on the weekend. Derek Rucker has come out and said that he's 20% better than anyone else in the league. How did you see his performance on the weekend?
Well, we're obviously witnessing greatness. I think the 20% might be a slightly disrespectful to the rest of the league, but there's no doubt that Bryce is one of the best players, arguably, a top 2 player of all time. What we've seen since he's jumped to Adelaide is a very aggressive Bryce Cotton that we saw for a good proportion of last year as well with the Perth Wildcats. Part of it is a statement in, he's worth all this money and what he's able to do. And he's on a mission as well to bring Adelaide a championship. The interesting part will be how this Adelaide 36ers roster evolves over the next couple of months, because while everything is good on the outset, there still needs to be tweaks made within this roster and the way that they're playing if they are to get to the ultimate goal of a championship, where they currently still sit behind Melbourne United, which we will thankfully get a glimpse of that this weekend, which will be nice to see actually where their watermark is.
So is it fair to say at the moment you think that the Adelaide 36ers style wouldn't stack up in finals, and maybe they are too reliant on Bryce Cotton getting it done for them?
Yeah, I've seen this for the last couple of years at the Wildcats with Bryce. He's obviously putting in some mammoth performances to get this team over the line. And obviously 53 when your team scores 91 is not a sustainable model to win a championship at the end of the day. I think he's done a really nice job in involving Isaac into and leveling up his game, and he seems to be the one true beneficiary of Bryce as well as Flynn Cameron at the moment. But I have question marks going forward. DJ isn't a guy that can continue this sort of play going forward. And to me, Adelaide need to find a way to be able to get him a couple, 2 to 3 open shots every quarter. The issue that I have is Bryce is running the point guard majority of the time. And so the easy option is to go into a pick and roll with Isaac and work off that. They've had great success with that, but long term, they're going to need to involve DJ more into the offense. Zylan Cheaton is a outstanding import and clearly playing a role, happy with his 1 to 3 shots a game currently. I still believe he can bring some value on the offensive end. And if they can get DJ and Zylan into this offense more, all it's going to do is open up Bryce long term for more shots. It's going to open up Isaac more going forward, but they haven't got the balance right. So it's not sustainable. And I did ask this question on X. Would you rather win games or win a championship or just see great performances time and time again? I know as a player, I want to win a championship. As I know a lot of Wildcats fans would love to have Bryce back and just see those performances again. But to me, still winning a championship is the ultimate goal at the end of the day, and I don't think the current model suits that system.
Yeah, there's plenty to play out in that Sixers offense. The Sydney Kings managed to shut Bryce down. We've heard from Leonard Copeland, Damon Lowry over the weekend on what they think that they would do defensively to try and shut down Bryce Cotton. We saw what the Sixers did. From your point of view, how would you shut down this man?
Yeah, I've spoken about this before. Sydney are the only team that have applied the logical way to play Bryce and set a blueprint up that neither Southeast Melbourne nor Cairns followed. Um, so a couple of things. You don't you need to trap Bryce on all on balls. Now that's easier said than done as a player. And just to give an understanding from a big man's perspective, the ability to jump out and corral someone as quick as Bryce is really tough to do. But at the moment, if you can get the ball out of his hands and force him to pass to someone else to make a play, I think your chances go up automatically. The secondly is what Sydney did was they pressed up on Bryce and not allowed him to dance and do his one-on-one moves at the top of the key. That's ultimately where Bryce gets a lot of his rhythm in what he does to be able to knock down that three-pointer, the long two. That's sort of his sweet spot. What Sydney did was pressure up on him and it forced him to become a driver towards Cooks, Suarez. And if you can get him to shoot more floaters just underneath the free throw line than what he is dancing one-on-one, I think that goes a long way as well. So that's the way I would play it. That's the way that Sydney did play it. And I haven't seen another team play it that way since. So it'd be interesting to see how Melbourne does it and the way that Dean Vickerman does it on the weekend.
Love the insight. Glad I'm not a coach coming up against Bryce Cotton. Before we move on to the Melbourne United matchup with the 36ers, I have to ask you about the Bryce Cotton presser comments. Let's take a listen right now to hear what Bryce had to say in that press conference.
Yeah, I mean, what you see is what you get. I've been extremely happy since the day I came here, not just with the teammates and the coaches, but everybody in the Adelaide organization is amazing. They've welcomed me and my family with open arms. And it feels good, to be in a place where you really feel welcome and wanted, and it makes you want to give it everything you got for everybody. So it's been fun, and obviously everything's a little bit more enjoyable when you're winning games.
So we heard it there, Bryce. Is it a little swipe? What do you think?
It's not a little swipe, it is a big swipe. There's a couple of reasons that he has no regrets. He's got no regrets because he's getting paid well by the Adelaide 36ers, and he's got no regrets because his team is currently standing above the Perth Wildcats and playing a better brand of basketball. So in many ways, there is no regrets there at the moment. And it's all part of the theatre, right? And I think this is the first season that I can remember where there's been little sub headlines, the KD and Montrez thing is still playing out even as we speak. They're still going at it. The Bryce and the Wildcats front office is going back and forth. Like, I think their first game is early in November and in Adelaide. That's going to be must watch. Bryce coming back to Perth for the first time is must watch TV. So yeah, there's no small swipe there. That's a statement sent. Bryce seemingly has a long memory, and I'm sure those games between Adelaide and Perth this season are going to be fantastic to watch.
I can't wait for those ones. And Bryce Cotton, I love the way he does it. It's understated, but it gets the message across. That's for sure. We've all taken note of what Bryce said on the weekend. Melbourne United, they have gone into that first position so dominant to start the season. They face the Adelaide 36ers this weekend. It's a game that I think everyone has circled on the calendar, two teams that are doing quite well at the moment. I want to hear about your thoughts around the Chris Goulding, Bryce Cotton head-to-head. Chris Goulding came out on the weekend, a huge amount of points from the bench. His performances are just getting better with age, but how are you seeing this matchup this early on?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of people will see. Well, first let's talk about Chris and let's talk about Bryce. Um, we're watching two of the best shooters to ever play. Chris still doing it, and I heard D-Ruck talk about it yesterday with Jack about how, and I had the same thought. He's just going to ease his way into this season and sort of map out the season, so his prime will be towards the finals and work his way into it. He's come out all guns blazing, and his ability to shoot the ball is more than impressive, and something that as you get a little bit older, that's something that he will continue to have as a weapon for himself. The way that this matchup will go ultimately will come down to team defense. So it's not so much a Bryce versus Chris Golding matchup. It's going to be, how does Adelaide stop what has been a very dominant Melbourne United team to start the season? And how does how does Melbourne stop a very dominant Bryce Cotton and the way that he started this season? And so I don't think there's any trickery to how Dino is going to do this. This is going to be purely a team defensive effort and focus on shutting down Bryce and allowing other people, if they can, win the game for him. And if they can't, Melbourne United move to 8-0 and be sitting pretty comfortably.
Absolutely. One of the players that I absolutely love from Melbourne United, everyone's big ups on Dash Daniels at the moment. He's a next star in the next star program. Does he get a crack at Bryce? Are you looking forward to seeing what the young gun can do against, I don't want to call Bryce old because he's getting better, but, experienced Bryce Cotton?
Well, he's definitely going to have a crack at some stage at this game. But I think this is the beauty of what Dean Vickerman brings as a coach. He'll give him a instruction into what to do and how to play this, and then put the responsibility on the rest of the team to be able to give Dash the confidence to go out and execute the game plan defensively against Bryce. But it is going to be probably one of those moments when we look back and Dash has moved on to bigger and better things, that we can say this was a moment in time for his career, whether he either got taught a lesson by Bryce or we saw the starts of what Dyson has been able to do in the NBA level and take that to the next level as well.
Can't wait for that game that's coming up on Sunday in round 6. Let's get to some quick hitters. There was plenty of other things that happened over the weekend. Let's start with Illawarra. 40-point loss. I commentated that game. It was tough to watch. Embarrassing?
Yeah, they need an import solution ASAP. And last year's predictability and toughness that the Hawarra Hawks is nowhere to be seen. And toughness comes from D and discipline, not wanting to start fights when you're down 20 to 30 points. They look more like a pickup team at the moment. They're disjointed. They're a hard watch at the moment, but I have no doubt that Coach Tatum will be able to turn this ship around very shortly.
Gorgon getting tossed. Yes.
Travesty.
No.
Travesty. It's been spoken about many times. Respect the man. Don't do him like that. Disgusting. That's all I got. I've been praising the officials so far, but we're not the AFL. There is emotion. Let coaches and players have emotion. Don't compound the problem by tossing out the great man. That travesty, that's all I've got. That no more needs to be said about that matter.
Travesty is the answer. Southeast Melbourne by 40 points. They were the winners over Illawarra. Have we underestimated their roster?
Well, first, it came against the Hawks, and they are playing bad basketball at the moment. No one is questioning the defensive prowess of what Southeast Melbourne can have. And we know with their new import, he's only going to add to that defense. The issue is, can they score consistently? They had a great night. Angus Glover had a great night shooting. Can they score consistently against the upper echelon teams to make it competitive? you can't just be a one-way basketball team and just play defense and hope to win. You must be able to score as well. So they've still got some question marks in my eyes until they start scoring consistently.
We see their new import Wezawundu this week, so I'm interested to see how he goes. And last one, All-NBL first team, you've got 4 of them. Is there any locks at this stage of the season? Actually, don't include Bryce.
Oh, the only other one is Casey Prather at the moment and what he's been able to do. Casey's been exceptional to start the season. I think it's a credit to him to be able to revolutionize his game from when he first came into the NBL. He's had some horrific injuries, but his first step, jab step, ability to score at all 3 levels, being at the basket, mid-range, and from 3 have been incredible to start this season. And he's another person that we should appreciate what he's been able to do so far.
Pete Hooley had a little teaser on Overtime last night, said that the Brisbane Bullets are potentially getting some help. So maybe Casey Prather is looking forward to that as well. Wertho, as always, a pleasure to sit here. Loved hearing your insight. As always, and can't wait to read your tweets. If you want to have a listen to Wertho's insights of the NBL across the weekend, have a look at that. Also, if you want some insider access, make sure you head to codesports.com.au. Plenty of information and access for NBL over there. And we can't wait to see what round 6 has to bring.
Thanks, Kels.